Hey there, Saki here from sakitech. In today's video, we will do a full comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S6 versus the newly released Samsung Galaxy S7. So as you know, the S6 was released in April 2015 and the S7 on March 2016. Even today, the S6 is a well-designed, gorgeous phone that packs a powerful punch even with its early 2015 specifications. But with the release of S7, people are asking questions. Is it worth upgrading to the more expensive S7 from the S6, or shall I get the S6 or the S7, or how much better is the S7? A little bit or too much? These are all valid questions, and in this video we will answer all of them and give you a precise conclusion. So let's dive in. Let's take a look at the build and design. Both the S6 and S7 are gorgeous phones. They are meticulously crafted out of metal and glass with no trace of plastic. The bezel of these phones is all magnesium alloy, whereas the front and back panel of these phones is built using Corning Gorilla Glass, which is one tough piece of glass with best-in-class durability and scratch resistance. The slight design difference between the S6 and S7 is that the S7 has a slight curve on the rear glass panel, while the S6 has a full flat rear glass panel. This will allow for better hand placement. Now, as for button and port placement, everything has remained the same. Both the S6 and the S7 will satisfy your thirst for build and beauty, hence we don't have a winner in this category. Now let's quickly talk about water resistance. While the S6 has no resistance against water, the S7 has a pretty solid IP68 grade water resistance. You can basically submerge this phone in up to 5 feet of water for 30 minutes and it will come out with no water damage. Of course, you are not going to do that. What you are going to do is fearlessly pull your S7 to take a call, answer a message, check the weather, and even take a photo while it is in fact raining without any worries. So think about that and think about how important water resistance is to you. If it is important, it should definitely affect your buying choice. And finally, all that metal and glass leaves you with a very slippery phone that could glide out of your hands onto the floor. You don't want that in your life, so a protective case or a skin is highly recommended, which will unfortunately hide the true beauty of these gorgeous phones. Anyway, let's move on and take a look at the processor, memory, and storage. Now, the S6 is a powerful device. It sports a 64-bit Exynos 7420 octa-core processor. Octa stands for 8. First set of 4 of the cores are clocked at 2.1 GHz, and the second set are clocked at 1.5 GHz. You also get 3 GB of RAM. S7 is faster. There will be 2 processor options based on the market. Now, the US, Chinese, and Japanese markets will be getting a powerful 64-bit quad-core Snapdragon 820 processor clocked up to 2.2 GHz. The European and Asian markets will get a powerful 64-bit Exynos 8890 octa-core processor. Again, we have 8 cores, 4 at 2.3 GHz, and 4 at 1.6 GHz. S7 will have a whopping 4 GB of RAM. On top of the processor improvements, the S7 brings back the cherished feature of micro SD expandable storage. You can buy a 32 GB S7 with the ability to add an additional 200 GB of extra storage using a micro SD card. I love this, as you can separate all your music, movies, and photos from your main storage. This is obviously a major feature and should affect your buying decision, as the S6 does not offer a micro SD slot. If you buy a 32 GB S6, you're stuck with that capacity for the life of your ownership. So there we go. Faster processor, more memory, and expandable storage. It seems like we have a winner. So let's move on. Dimensions and weight. Let's give you some facts, some numbers. The S6 measures 143.4 millimeters in height. It is 70.5 millimeters wide and 6.8 millimeters thick. It weighs 138 grams. The S7 measures 142.4 millimeters in height. It is 69.6 millimeters wide and 7.9 millimeters thick. It weighs 152 grams. Now the S6 seems to have a slight edge in thickness. It is almost 1 millimeter thinner. But the real bottom line here is that both phones are slim, sexy, and featherweight. I have stopped caring about phone sizes since a couple years ago because even the heaviest flagship phone nowadays is featherweight and paper thin. But as you will also learn in a little bit, the battery in the S7 has a higher capacity, so that does add to the overall weight, which is a justified compromise in my opinion. For now, let's move on to the screen resolution, PPI, and the screen quality. As a matter of fact, the S6 and S7 has the same specs for the screen. We have a 5.1-inch screen, we have 1440 by 2560 pixels, and we have 577 pixels per inches, and both phones use the Super AMOLED technology, which means you get deep blacks, great contrast, and rich, vibrant colors. Both of these phones have some of the best displays on the market. You cannot go wrong with either one. Display quality should not be a deciding factor, so let's move on to the software. On both phones, we have the latest version of Android Marshmallow with Samsung TouchWiz overlay. If your S6 hasn't received the Marshmallow update yet, it soon will. So we will assume both phones are running Android Marshmallow for the comparison. This also means that you get very similar software experience, but the S7 is slightly snappier due to that newer processor. So let's not forget what this is. This is in fact Android, therefore you get all the perks of Android system, which means you get extensive customization and personalization, so you can tweak the look of your software experience to your own sense of style. You can even install and download themes, which is going to transform the way your phone looks. Now there's only one thing that the S7 has software-wise that the S6 doesn't, which is what Samsung calls the always on display. So let's take a look at the camera. We do have a tough comparison here. On the one hand, we have the S6 with a 16 megapixel rear camera with an aperture of f1.9, and on the other hand, we have the S7 with a 12 megapixel rear camera with an aperture of f1.7. Both these cameras are world class, but there are two things you will get on the S7 that will be significantly better. The first one is you will get stupid fast autofocus due to the new dual pixel image sensor, and the second one is you will get better low light photos due to that larger f1.7 aperture and of course faster autofocus even in low light. Now those are just facts, but it is imperative to understand that the S6 camera is an absolute success. It takes sharp and gorgeous photos, and so does the S7, but S7 does it faster and it takes better low-light photos. That's the big and main difference. Now as for video, you will be able to record in 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second, and you can also record in 4K in 30 frames per second on both phones. On the S6, you can record slow motion videos at 720p with 120 frames per second, but on the S7 you get an upgrade. On the S7 you get to record slow motion videos at 720p at 240 frames per second. And of course, being that the S7 is the newer device, you also get some software enhancements that will give you some extra features such as stabilized time-lapse videos. And finally, on the front we have a 5 megapixel camera on each phone with an aperture of f1.9 on the S6 and f1.7 on the S7. Again, the larger aperture on the S7 will result in better low-light photos for the front-facing camera. If you like to take selfies at nighttime, this might be good for you. I personally don't care about selfies. So let's move on and take a look at the battery life and some charging features. So the S6 has a battery capacity of 2550 milliamp hours and the S7 has 3000 milliamp hours. The difference in battery capacity translates to a longer battery life. S6 honestly doesn't have such a great battery life. It drains fast and under heavy use, it will be gone before the day is over. But the 3000 milliamp hours battery in the S7 will give you a full day of use under medium to heavy use. Additionally, both phones have some amazing software features such as the Ultra Power Savings Mode, which transforms your smartphone into a black and white bare minimum device only good for calling, texting, and other basic functions such as being able to use the calendar or the calculator. You cannot watch movies, play games, no fancy media, just the basics. This would allow you to survive for a full day on a 10% battery life if you were stranded. As for charging, both devices offer wireless charging, but the S7 actually offers fast wireless charging. When charging wirelessly, S6 will take approximately 3 hours to charge from 0 to 100%, while the S7 will take approximately 2 hours to fully charge, which is fantastic. Additionally, both devices do offer wired super fast charging, which charges these phones from 0 to 100 within an hour. Just make sure you use the included wall charger adapter to get maximum charging speed. 1 hour for a full charge is amazing. Let's move on to the fingerprint sensor. No complaints here. Both phones offer super fast touch to unlock fingerprint sensor that works with a 99% accuracy every single time. It is easy to set up, easy to use, and fast to unlock. Cannot ask for more. Let's move on. Alright, so as we have said earlier, let's do a quick benchmark comparison between these two phones. Using the Geekbench benchmarking tool, which simulates real-world scenarios to stress test these devices to their absolute maximum. All we have to do is kill all the background tasks on each device and then launch Geekbench and run Geekbench. And then I'll fast forward to the end to save time, and we can inspect the results to see which one is faster. No surprises here. The S7 on the left wins in multi-core and single-core scores. You can see what the scores are. Let's move on. Alright, so let's do a meaningful conclusion by listing firstly what has actually improved in the S7, and then we will look at what hasn't improved. So here's a list of the improvements. You get a faster processor and more RAM. You get expandable storage that allows for an additional 200 gigabytes of storage via a microSD card. You also get IP68 certified water resistance, which, as we have said, is fantastic. You get a large 3000 mAh battery that will make a difference in battery life, and also a new camera with significantly faster autofocus and significantly better low-light performance. And now let's list what hasn't improved or what has remained almost the same. So the design and build is mostly the same. Both phones look gorgeous. You have similar battery management features such as the ultra power savings mode, and also charging features such as wireless charging and fast wired charging. You have the same amazing screen quality and high resolution. Both phones are lightweight and slim, and you have a similar software experience. Now, based on those facts, do I think you need to upgrade to an S7? It truly depends on your needs. Are the improvements worth it? Carefully review them and make a decision based on your own review. Just remember that the following 3 new features on the S7 should carry a lot of weight in your buying decision. Number 1, the water resistance. Number 2, the expandable storage via the SD card. And number 3, the large battery. If those 3 things are very important, then the choice is clear. Otherwise, S6 will satisfy your thirst for a top-of-the-line phone without any problems. And also, if you noticed, I did not mention the camera as carrying any special weight, because despite the faster autofocus and low light on the S7, the S6 is still a world-class smartphone camera. So don't let the camera improvements sway you too much. Well, thank you for watching this video. Leave comments and concerns below. Let me know which phone you chose and share why with everybody else. And of course, make sure to subscribe to sakitech and give this video a thumbs up. Have a great day.